A very good morning. Welcome to Sky News Breakfast. Thank you for joining us. And as I said, we're starting with that breaking news on the economy this morning with the latest GDP figures for the third quarter just released in the last few moments. And we have our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, here with us to tell us the news. What are they, Ed?
Yeah, the economy has shrunk by 0.2% in the third quarter. That is, to take kind of the big picture, what is GDP? It is the total amount of income that we're generating across the economy. You know, it's that then gets shared and goes into our pockets. So the fact that it's shrinking is obviously not good news. However, 0.2%, that is actually a little bit less bad than many economists had expected. They thought it was going to go down by about 0.5%. So this is a little bit better than expected. But even so, it still suggests we are in the beginning, potentially, of a period of contraction. And, you know, people have been talking a lot about recession recently, haven't they? Well, it is a slightly arbitrary term, but basically it means when you've got two successive quarters, so when we're talking about quarters, those 3-month periods, two successive quarters of the economy shrinking, that technically constitutes a recession. And the majority of economists think next quarter we're going to be shrinking, potentially the quarter after that as well. So this may well be the beginning of a period of the economy shrinking. But as I say, that number's actually a little bit better than we expected. So there's a little glimmer of hope there. And it's worth also noting that that period, I've yet to see the full kind of details of it because it's just come in, but that period obviously was the period of the Queen's funeral. There was an extra bank holiday in that period. And when there's an extra bank holiday, that tends to take a little bit off your output. So, you know, it may well be that adjusting for that, the economy was more like kind of close to flatlining rather than going down. Now, this is not good news exactly, but it's certainly kind of less dire than some people might have had you believe.
Does it suggest that perhaps the recession that we're now going into may end up being less bleak than forecast previously by the Bank of England? Well,
let's hope so. But, I mean, it's just so hard to tell at the moment. And there's so many imponderables right now. I mean, you know, whatever happens in Ukraine, whatever happens with energy prices is going to have a massive bearing on this because to some extent that's, you know, what we're adjusting to here. Higher inflation, higher energy prices. And then on top of that, you've got the Bank of England adjusting to that, raising interest rates as well. And then we're expecting to hear from the government next week about potential further spending cuts. So put all of that together, and, you know, it doesn't take an economist to work out that all of that's going to kind of dampen down the amount of activity you have in the economy, all else equal, and mean that you have less spending. But as I say, a little bit, it's a kind of glimmer of slightly, you know, less bad, yeah, less bleak than expected. And also worth setting that against the fact that we just heard in the US that inflation there is rising less quickly than had been expected as well. Still going up very fast. But again, that's people might put all this together and say, OK, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a very tough winter. There's all sorts of things, you know, heading our way, but maybe not quite as bad as had been expected.
And in terms of the autumn statement next week, could these figures impact what we may hear from the Chancellor?
It's hard to tell. I mean, we are quite late on in the process, so probably they've started to bed in a lot of their decisions. We'll get reaction from the Chancellor to these numbers. I suspect that in a perverse way, they're quite keen to underline that, you know, it's tough times at the moment and there are challenges ahead. But as I say, it's worth saying, it's quite unusual to go into a recession and to have the government actually kind of pressing further on the brake pedal, which is kind of what, you know, that constitutes. If you're cutting spending, if you're raising taxes, that makes it tougher. So we will see, and we'll bring you more kind of details about kind of what the breakdown. It does look like the services sector, which is the vast majority of the economy, actually kind of flatlining rather than shrinking. That's kind of relatively good news. And yeah, 0.2% down, a little bit better than expected.
OK, Ed, for now, thank you.